Back in 2007, as a single mother of 6, I thought I'd finally found a place to call home. A 2-story Victorian with a white picket fence and a honeysuckle-covered arbor. It was perfect. Almost too perfect. With its wraparound porch and floor-to-ceiling windows that let scent of honeysuckle drift in on summer breezes. It felt like a promise of peace, a place where my children and I could finally be safe. But I was wrong. Horribly wrong. The house waited until I was comfortable, lulled into a false sense of security before it showed its true face. 3 months after moving in, the terror began. It started in the kitchen, where we'd begun remodeling. Night after night, I was jarred awake by the sound of raised voices, angry, vicious, echoing through the darkened room below. Heavy footsteps stomped back and forth, a relentless, furious pace that only ceased when I switched on the light. For weeks, I endured it, pretending the house was settling, convincing myself it was nothing, until the night I found shattered dishes and loaves of bread flung across the floor. The house was angry, and its rage was growing. Then, the shadow figure appeared. It didn't care about doors. It came through the front like a long-forgotten habit. Its dark shape slipped past the lock and sliding up the stairs. I saw it too often, day and night. It had purpose, a path, one that led right to my children's rooms. It was unnerving, but what my twins saw was worse. They were only 3, but they spoke of small, rotting creatures that emerged from underneath the bathroom sink. They said that its skin was a sickly greenish gray, hanging in tatters, and its eyes were black pits. It whispered to them, promising to steal their breath. They described its sharp, broken teeth, and the more they told me, the more terrified I became because I couldn't see it. It existed only for them, lurking in the shadows. I couldn't touch it. I began sitting with them during baths, refusing to leave them alone in the bathroom. Eventually, the whispers stopped, but I knew it wasn't gone. It was waiting, biding its time. Winter settled in, wrapping the house in an icy grip. I decided to turn the first room off the foyer into a library and a playroom, a place where we could huddle by the fireplace and escape the cold. One night, after I put the kids to bed, I sat by the window, watching the heavy flakes fall. I saw Brian, my son's friend, trudging up the sidewalk. His red hair was plastered to his face, and he looked exhausted, shoulders hunched under a green army bag. I watched him open the gate, cross the yard, and walk up to the porch steps. He knocked, and as I reached for the doorknob, I caught sight of something else, something that shouldn't have been there. A small boy stood at the base of the stairs, his blonde hair gleaming under the dim light, his eyes too dark for a child, locked into mine. He smiled, but there was no warmth in it, only twisted mockery of joy. I flung the door open, expecting Brian, but no one was there. When I asked my son to call him, Brian was still at his house, miles away. My kids began to whisper about the boy, calling him Boog or Billy. as if naming him made him less real. But I knew better. I needed answers. So I dug into the history of the house. The truth was worse than I could have imagined. In the 1940s, a family lived there, trying to restore it. Their young son fell through a rotten patch in the floor, my bedroom floor, and broke his neck on the porch below. The shadow I saw was his father, retracing the same steps he took every day. The voices in the kitchen belonged to his parents, stuck in a loop of grief and rage. And the mother? She hung herself in the attic after losing her son. But none of that explained the creature under the sink. It didn't fit, didn't belong to any story I could find. Its presence felt ancient, primal. It was something else entirely. Then Pete came to visit. Uncle Pete, Vietnam veteran, hardened tunnel rat. I thought if anyone could handle this house, it was him. But as he walked under the arbor, his face went pale. He shivered and glanced up at my bedroom windows, the ones that had always been so inviting. Inside, he couldn't sit still. His eyes kept darting to the stairs as if he could sense the shadow person pacing there. Goosebumps rose on his arms, and he looked like he was ready to flee. After only 15 minutes, he stood up abruptly. "I have to go," he said, his voice tight. I walked him to the door, and as he stepped into the cold, he grabbed my arm, his eyes fierce. "Whatever's in that house, it's evil. You and your kids need to leave now." A week later, I put the house up for sale. My children and I left, abandoning the dreams I had once had for that place. The house on Carteret St in Pueblo, Colorado, sold quickly, as if it was eager for new victims. It has since changed hands many times. I wonder if they know what awaits for them inside, lurking in the shadows, whispering from underneath the sink.
We hope you enjoyed the story. Stay safe and remember, the scariest stories are the ones we live through. Until next time.